Welcome back to Q Dads. I'm Steve, and episode 10, which although is a lot slower than any of the other episode, it finally wraps up a lot of the story. There are a couple of main questions, like where is Lee, and also why choose to end the series in 2017. Before we discuss some of these talking points, don't forget to subscribe, as it really helps the channel to grow and makes sure we can continue reviewing some great shows, just like Monarch. We start the episode titled Beyond Reality, with Keiko and Kate in Axis Mundi, with Kate in this initial moment being quite vague about who she is. It turns out that Keiko was the one creating the signal from the previous episode. She did this by tinkering with the Titan phone. They meet with Lee and May, and we learn that she has been down there for around 57 days, which is about what we thought. Lee fills Keiko in on what has happened and what Monarch are up to now. Keiko actually mentions here that the time jumps are down to the gravitational distortion, which then warps space-time. I'm not sure how concrete this is, but I think something similar was mentioned in the Godzilla vs Kong film when they travelled to Hollow Earth. Tim tries to stop all the destruction at Monarch and tries to convince the director to follow the signal, but it falls on deaf ears, solidifying the future of Tim and the decision he makes later in the episode. Hiroshi collects his stuff from Kentaro's place and is firmly kicked out of the family home. Tim approaches Kentaro after to discuss following the signals to help find Kate. Although this is needed for the story, it leads to the slowest part of the episode, and the way they have shown Kentaro and Hiroshi is just not how I expected it to be. Lee and Keiko talk about what she has missed, like the introduction of flat screen TVs, space travel, and even the death of Bill Randa. Again, I'm slightly disappointed to not have any final scene with a young Bill Randa, not even a quick flash of them, although they did have a scene of Hiroshi watching his files. I think it would have been nice to have seen a scene with him discovering the mystery of Skull Island, especially following the supposed death of Lee. Then again, based on the ending, maybe we'll see more of Bill in season 2, more on that at the end. After travelling through the woods with the Titan phone, we finally make it to the ship. The plan is to call a Titan and open the rift, dragging them back to the surface. This does start to happen, but after the attack of Amuto, a wire falls out, and yes, Lee sacrifices himself to fix the wire. We did say someone was going to sacrifice themselves this episode, but instead of Keiko, as Ben predicted, it was Lee, which actually makes sense after wrapping up his character's storyline in the last episode. Now, just before the end of the battle, we see the Muto use its saliva to attempt to blind Godzilla. This confirms it's the same type of Titan as the one from the Philippines. My question is this the same one? Or is this just one of those lesser Titans where there are multiple of them? We then get our final shots of Godzilla as he uses his atomic breath to wipe out the Titan. Now, as much as it was nice to see this little battle, it did feel a bit irrelevant in my opinion, but it was also needed to boost up the almost lifeless episode. They end up heading through the wormhole and leaving Lee behind. In the final shots, the group return, but under the control of Apex Cybernetics, which Ben said he didn't predict. I, on the other hand, had guessed this as soon as Tim mentioned Monarch are not the only ones with skin in the game. As we know, there's only one other company at this time that has the resources and the motive. However, what I didn't expect was the fact we are at the Skull Island facility with none other than Kong. Now yes, we've been hoping for an appearance of Kong for the whole series, especially considering he was teased in the posters, so to finally bring him in does feel right. Now, is this going to lead any future series in the direction of a Kong storyline? We did mention that each series could be about each film. I'm unsure why they chose to come out at 2017. When I say this, I mean the showmakers. Why not bring them out after the events of the upcoming film? Is this purely to stretch out the series more and do multiple series focusing on titans like King Kong and Ghidorah? Or was this for some other reason? The biggest question I have around this though is why is this an Apex outpost? Because in the 29 film, and certainly by the 2021 film, the outpost is a Monarch one. So I was pondering that, but then I remembered Monarch and Apex have got a little secret deal on the go. So maybe this is part of it. Monarch allowed Apex to start an outpost. If we get a season 2, I'd fully expect it to be around the events at this outpost and how it goes from Apex to Monarch. Following that trail of thought for a moment, with Keiko now on Skull Island, will she be following in Bill's footsteps and exploring? As I assume a new threat will end up taking out the outpost. Or, get this, as Apex clearly wants to mess with the Titans and aren't against messing with their DNA, could they be the ones who create the virus that wipes out the tribe on Skull Island? As, by the 2011 film, Gia is the last remaining member. Maybe this is why Monarch took over the outpost. Maybe Kong attacked them. Then again, maybe the virus came back with Keiko for spending so much time in Axis Mundi. Either way, I think it would be really interesting for Season 2 to follow the events of Kong prior to the Godzilla vs Kong film, as we could see what then happens to him when Ghidorah rises. As they mentioned in the film, Kong is also reacting to Ghidorah. So, taking that all into account, I now think that the series will be separate to the films, but just exist in the same universe, filling in the backstory to the events between each film. Now, moving on to my favourite character, Tim. The fact he approached Apex was such a shock. He's one of the only people that truly believe in Monarch's core values, so to go to Apex baffles me. Unless he doesn't know what they are capable of, or has he been an even darker horse than we expected? I still think he's too involved in the Randers to just be an outsider. In my mind, there's still a chance he's related to the Randers in some way, or maybe related to another character we saw. Long shot here, but could he be a relation to Walter Simmons and be acting as a mole for Apex? I only think that's a long shot because Tim seems to care. Although, if he thinks Walter is trying to help and isn't a bad guy, maybe that's why he's willing to side with Apex. Now, I want to touch on Lee for a moment. Is this the last we're going to see of him? Obviously, he stays behind in Axis Mundi, but will he return to Earth at some other point, or even venture further into Hollow Earth and live there instead? I don't think they've killed him off. I believe they're going to leave him maybe for a couple of seasons, or maybe even bring him back in a film. Who knows? Personally, I think it's clear that time is moving very differently for him now, so it's completely possible Monarch or Apex sends someone to go get him. As, by the 2021 film, Apex has attempted more missions to Hollow Earth. Again, we're still assuming Hollow Earth and Axis Mundi are the same thing, as they clearly look very different. Do you think it was the right choice to sacrifice Lee and not Keiko? Overall, this episode was okay. Not much pace, but I still expected just a little more from the final. I know it's customary now to make episode 9 be the big one. However, this series finally felt like it was building to something, and I just think episode 10 could have done more. Especially with flashback scenes, seeing as they did not exist in this episode. The whole opening is clearly a shot of 2 different times, and to not have some final scenes from the past felt like a letdown. I know I've already mentioned it, but I would have liked to have seen Bill, following the loss of Lee, thinking that Monarch was completely over, only then to read about the possibility of Skull Island. Join us for our last cast in a few days, where we'll discuss some of these points in more detail as we put a lid on Monarch for now. So, our final questions to you. Have you enjoyed the series? Do you want a season 2? If so, is this the end for Lee? And finally, are you looking forward to the new film this year? Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to like and leave a comment letting us know your thoughts. And as always, we'll catch you next time with something new.